Today we are building an asymmetrical shelf thingy. Alright, we start out milling the lumber, and that is the second most important thing about woodworking. If you don't have good square lumber to start out your project with, it's probably not going to end out very well. And the first most important thing about furniture making is selecting the right grain for the design of the project you're working on. The grain pattern can make or break your project. If you got an ugly grain pattern, no matter how good your craftsmanship is, your project is going to look bad. So for this project, the client went with a rift-sawn white oak. They really like that tight grain look to get a bit kind of a contemporary modern feel. They're trying to stay away from that cathedral grain, country-looking oak style. Every project involves a ton of material prep. So I've gone through and I've ripped all the boards to width that I need to build the shelves. And so now I'm working on the legs, getting that material prepped and ready to go. All right, to make sure this shelving unit doesn't rock and everything comes out nice and square, I have set up a stop at my miter gauge. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm squaring one end, and then I flip the stop down and then cut the leg to length. And by using that stop, it increases accuracy by a ton and make sure those legs come out to the exact same length, which will increase the chances of the project coming out square and not rocking. Alright, so I got all my shelves glued up, and they're just a little bit too wide to cut accurately and nice and square on most of the equipment that I have in my shop. So I'm just using this underpowered Festool track saw to cut them to length. It does pretty good. I just use my handheld square to make sure the track is nice and square to the material, and then just take my time to cut them nice and square. Alright, so now I'm working on the joinery between the shelves and the legs. Alright, so for the legs on the corners of the shelving unit, I'm going to use a little bird's mouth half lap to connect those shelves to the legs. So what I have set up here is a little template with the shape of the bird mouth that I want to cut and a pattern bit on the router. I just took several passes and took my time to make sure I didn't have any major tear out, and I'm trying to route towards the end grain of the piece just to prevent that tear out. I'm not going to go the other direction because then that would cause a ton of tear out. Alright, so now for the leg that's in the field of the shelf, I just did a standard half lap, and I'm going to cut that on the table saw. So I have set up here a tall plywood backer that's attached to my miter gauge, and that is for safety because trying to hold up a tall shelf like that and push it through on the miter gauge and not have it tip could be a little bit of a dangerous cut. So I just want to protect myself and do everything I can to make sure it's safe cut so I don't damage the workpiece or damage myself. All right, and then you'll notice I have a stop block attached to the fence, and that stop block is acting like a spacer. So basically the thickness of the leg, it's going to take 2 passes to create that half lap. So I have that stop block set up the thickness of the second pass. So that way I can accurately make 1 pass and then remove that stop block and make the second pass. And I figured all that out by doing a test cut prior to hitting record. And then I'm going to use that exact same setup when I cut the half lap on the legs. When I milled up the shelves and the legs, I milled them up at the exact same time so they're the exact same thickness, so I could use the exact same setup. This really helps with accuracy and saves a lot of time by not having to do multiple unnecessary setups. And then for the legs in the corner where I needed that bird mouth half lap, I created a sled that was basically a saddle for the leg to ride in at a 45-degree angle, and then made my cuts the same way as before. Alright, so I'm getting ready to do some sanding and finishing here, but before I do all that, I want to do a test run to make sure everything fits together and that I have a good clamping method ready to go. A game plan for clamping. In reality, this is a pretty simple design and pretty simple build, but there's also a lot of parts here that have to go together all at the same time. So if I don't have a good clamping strategy and something doesn't fit just right when I go to glue things up, a simple project can turn into a disaster really, really quick. All right, once I got everything fitting the way I wanted it, it was time to move on to the finish. And for the finish, we're going to do a custom stain blend. And this stain blend is a complementary color to some of the other woodwork in the house that I created specifically for the client. The first step in this custom stain blend is to do what's called a ceruse finish. So basically I am painting the piece white, and then I'm going to come back and rub the excess paint off. But when I rub the excess paint off, I'm not going to go with the grain. I'm going to go against the grain so I can push that paint into the pores of the grain. And then after I get all that paint pushed into the pores of the grain and the excess paint off and the paint has dried, I will come back, sand the pieces, sanding off the excess paint, only leaving behind the paint in the pores, which gives it that ceruse look. And then I'll top coat it with my custom stain color and then finish it with a customer's choice of sheen for the finish. I think we went with a semi-gloss if I remember correctly. All right, so now that the finish is dry, it is time for the glue up. And for this glue up, I am using a slow set epoxy. No need to rush a glue up. If you know, you know. All right, and then to do the assembly, since this is pre-finished, we're using a rubber mallet, and then I raided my sock drawer to put some socks over the top of the clamps to protect the wood from marring, scraping, scratching, whatever. Now in the beginning of this video, I showed you a sketch of this stand with a case on top. And that case build is not in this video. I built that years ago before YouTube was even invented for this client, and it was designed to fit a specific architectural feature in the home. They've moved, so now they need a stand for this case. And that's how this stand came to be, and I don't have footage of the case. I know it's hard to believe that woodworking exists outside of social media, but that's how we did things before the invention of YouTube. So luckily the client sent me a picture of the finished piece after I shipped it to them. Here it is with the stand married with the case in place in their home.